I feel like ultimately that's what this story is about. The Pan Pacific Grand Prix Latin dance is meaningless. It's ridiculous. But dance is not meaningless. It's about the dance. And when you're focusing on winning this trophy, you've lost it all.
Have you ever had something you love dismissed because it's just pop culture? What others might deem stupid shit, you know matters. You know it's worth talking and thinking about. And so do we. So come overthink with us as we delve into our deep thoughts about stupid shit.
I'm Emily Guy Birkin, and you're listening to Deep Thoughts About Stupid Shit. Because pop culture is still culture. And shouldn't you know what's in your head? On today's episode, I'll be sharing my deep thoughts about the 1992 Baz Luhrmann film, Strictly Ballroom, with my sister, Tracy Guy Decker. And with you. Let's dive in. So, Trace, I know you've seen this because we saw it in the theater together and absolutely loved it. But tell me what you remember about Strictly Ballroom.
That's about all I remember, is that I loved it. Like, I feel like you remember like whole plot lines of these movies we saw when we were kids, and I remember how they made me feel. So I remember loving it. I remember that it's about ballroom dancing in competition in Australia, I think. That's it. That's all I got. So tell me, why are we talking about Strictly Ballroom today?
I cannot remember how I was reminded of it, but somehow I was reminded of it. I was like, ooh, I liked that one. So I like Baz Luhrmann as a director. He directed the Romeo and Juliet that had Leonardo DiCaprio and Claire Danes. Mm-hmm.
Claire Danes?
He also directed Moulin Rouge. And with Strictly Ballroom, those are considered kind of a trilogy, which is weird as F. Because very tonally different in some ways. In some ways, no, they kind of hang together. So I just kind of like, this was going to be a very light retread for me. You know, you talk about sometimes you just want to watch a comedy and feel good. And this was, I kind of wanted to watch a comedy and feel good. Also, Paul Mercurio, who plays the main character, Scott Hastings. Oh, man. I did not mind spending an hour and a half looking at him. Did not mind that at all.
Emily is consistent.
I am nothing if not consistent.
Okay. All right. Well, so tell me, besides the eye candy, like, give me some like postcards from where we're going.
The thing that I remember that stuck with me, other than the romantic plot, the thing that stuck with me about this was the absolute low stakes nature of the story, because it is about the Pan Pacific Grand Prix Latin dance for amateurs. And it is such a big deal to all of these people. Like they take it so seriously. And so we in the audience are in on the joke that this is ridiculous. And so that is something that I really kind of love about this movie, that like we end up like from the very beginning, we're like, oh, these people are ridiculous. And then we get into it. We're like, oh no, it is very important. And then there's also the sense of like, well, what is important? So there's that aspect of it. The sense of gatekeeping that I think is kind of really interesting. The idea of like, what is creativity? What is art is really interesting. I think there's some really interesting questions about gender when it comes to creation and art and romance. And then I don't remember noticing this at the time, but I felt it this time. There's a sense of white people ruin everything. And, you know, I feel that way and I am a white people. So those are some of the things that we're going to talk about.
Okay, well, catch me up on the plot, since all I remember is that I liked it and there's dancing and it's Australian.
So we are introduced to the world of ballroom dancing. We're Scott Hastings, played by Paul Mercurio. He is the son of a family of ballroom dancers. His mother, Shirley Hastings, and his father, Doug Hastings. Shirley is a dancer. his father, Doug, is a very quiet and meek man, and he seems to just do, like, he fixes things around the studio. The studio belongs to their friend Les, I can't remember his last name, Kendall or something like that. And so none of the three adults, because Scott is somewhere under the age of 25, none of the three adults talk about the past much. All Scott knows is that Les and Shirley danced together and there was some kind of blow up among them before he was born. So at some sort of opener for the dance season, Scott and his partner Liz got boxed in by Ken Rawlings and his partner Pam Stone. And so to get out of that,
and boxed in means like they were stuck in a certain spot on the dance floor?
On the dance floor.
Okay.
Yeah. So to get out, Scott started doing his own dance steps that were not, quote unquote, strictly ballroom. And when it starts, it's a little bit like a documentary. So there's a point where like they're interviewing Scott's parents and they're interviewing Liz. And Liz says, like, I had no choice. Where the man goes, the lady must follow. And so the steps were like crowd pleasing, but he and Liz end up losing to Ken and Pam
because they're non-regulation.
We also meet the president of the Federation, Barry Fife, who has like basically a gopher stapled to his head. It is the worst.
It's just a really bad
toupee. And everybody has bad teeth. One other person we meet there is a woman named Fran. She is part of the interviews who says, I'm just a beginner. I've only been at the studio for 2 years and I still don't have a partner, but I thought Scott's dancing was really lovely and they should have won. And we see her saying to Liz, who's storming off the dance floor, like, Liz, I thought you did great. You should have won. And Liz like basically knocks her over so that you get a sense of who Liz is. We also meet Scott's friend Wayne and Wayne's partner and fiance Vanessa. Shirley, Scott's mother, is distraught. And the next day, Scott is asking Liz, like, what did you think of my steps? And she's like, I don't care about your steps. You know, don't you want to win the Pan Pacific Grand Prix? And like, they keep saying it. And there's an even longer title. It's like a 7-word title. I don't remember what it was. People keep saying, you need to apologize to Liz. So he's like, dance apologizing to her. And then starts doing his own steps again. And she like scream cries. And he's like, what is it that you want? And she says, I want Ken Rawlings to come in here and say, Pam Stone just broke both her legs and I want to dance with you. And the camera like cuts away to a car crash with Pam Stone's car crashing. And then Ken Rawlings comes in and says, Pam Stone just broke both her legs and I want to dance with you, Liz. And Scott's little sister, who's like about 10, says, well, that was unexpected.
That is so, okay, that's funny.
Like this movie it's bonkers. So Scott is now without a partner and Shirley is really distraught now. So everyone goes home. Scott is alone in the studio or so he thinks. And so he's practicing his own dancing. And Fran comes up to him and says, basically, like, I want to dance with you. Your steps. I think they're lovely. He's like, you think my steps are good? And she says, yes, but they're too much. You need to reel it in a little bit, but you need to dance from the heart. And he's like, you're a beginner. You have no idea what you're talking about. I've been dancing since I was 6. He's like, you've never even danced with, you dance with a girl because they don't have enough male dancers to go around. So you've never danced with a partner. And he pisses her off to the point where she says, you're a gutless wonder. And then she says something, she yells at him in Spanish and then starts crying. And because she's crying, and she's saying, like, just give me an hour to show you what I know how to do. Because she starts crying, he feels bad and says, all right, 1 hour. And so they start practicing the rumba. And so even though during the day they're trying out other dancers, they continue to practice. Fran and Scott continue to practice the rumba at night. And she actually teaches him some things that he doesn't know.
She's Latina?
And so now Fran, when you first meet her, has like her skin's not great. Her hair's very frizzy. She's wearing these glasses that are way too big for her face. And so we end up having like a
little bit of a glow up.
Not just a little bit, like an amazing
like
glow up.
a transformational makeover.
Yeah. So all of this is going on. Meanwhile, we see that Shirley is always very mean to Doug. We see that Doug has this locked cabinet in which he has like reels of old videos of things, and he'll watch like Scott's dancing from when he was dancing his own steps. Sometimes he'll put on music and dance himself, even though everyone says Doug doesn't dance. We see just like how important it is to everyone in Scott's world that Scott win the Pan-Pacific Grand Prix because he's been training for it from age 6, and he will not win with his own steps. Fran clearly has a crush on Scott. One of the things he says is when they're doing the rumba, he's like, dance is a story. The story of the rumba is that you're in love. You need to sell it. Look at me like you're in love with me. And there's a point where he walks her home. She like looks at him in, like with hard eyes. And he says, I said about the dance that it's a story of love, but it's just pretend. And she's like, oh, yeah, of course. And like trips over herself leaving. So there's some backing and forthing. We see that Ken, who came and wanted Liz as his partner, we see that he is actually an alcoholic and is actually horrible to dance with. And there is it's not a competition, but a show that Scott is going to dance with Fran at this show. The night before, or no, it's the night of that show, Fran's father says, you have to be at home for this. Fran's father, Rico, you have to be home for this. He doesn't like that she's out all the time and she's like lying about where she is because he's kind of overprotective. And so she says, I'm going to help my friend Natalie, and lies where she's going to be. And she's got a grandmother as well. And so she goes to the show. There is a Pan-Pacific Grand Prix champion named Tina Sparkle, whose partner is retiring, and Barry Fife, the
I was going to say, wait, that's a character name I know.
It's Barry Fife. It's very close. It's the guy with the rodent on his head.
Oh, the really bad
guy. The president of the Federation. He has basically decided that Tina Sparkle will be Scott's new partner. And so he has drinks with Les, the owner of the studio that Scott trains at, to announce like, hey, on the down low, that Tina's partner is retiring after the showcase and that Tina will dance with Scott that night. So Fran shows up just as Les gets there to where Shirley is. Scott is not there yet. So there's a misunderstanding, classic sitcom misunderstanding about like, oh, Scott has a new partner. I don't know who it is. And like, oh, you minx, you figured it out. And, one of those things. And so Fran thinks they're talking about her and blah, 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 blah. And then it all comes out and Fran is devastated. And so when she it's like Scott ends up saying like, no, I don't want to dance with you, Tina, and runs after Fran all the way back to her house, where the father is like, who are you? And he's like, no, we just danced together. He's like, why are you dancing so late at night? What kind of dancing are you doing? He's like, Paso Doble, knowing that this is a dance that, since Fran is Latina, her father, who's like, I think carrying a guitar, will know. And he's like, oh, all right, show me your Paso Doble. And so Scott's like, oh, okay, yeah, I'll do that. And so they're having a party, which is why he wanted Fran there. And so they bring everybody in, they start playing music. And so they start doing the Strictly Ballroom version. So they're doing a Strictly Ballroom version of the Paso Doble. And so everyone there like busts a gut laughing because it's not a Paso Doble. And so Scott's like, what are you laughing at? And Rico, Fran's father, is like, that's not Paso Doble. I'll show you Paso Doble. And so he does like the traditional version of the dance.
Super sexy. That's my recollection.
Yeah. And it's
like slow and sensual.
It's not. It's
foot dragging.
Yeah. With the grandmother. And so the grandmother says in Spanish, like, hot stuff here may be able to shake his tail feather, but he doesn't have any rhythm. And so Fran translates that as grandma wants to teach you.
That's cute.
And she asks Scott, like, where do you feel the rhythm? And so he starts moving his feet. And she says, no. You feel it in your heart. And so they start teaching them. Now, earlier to this, when he had been walking her home, she had taught him a phrase in Spanish that her grandmother had taught her, which is, and I don't remember the Spanish phrase, but it's, a life lived in fear is a life half lived. And so they are learning the paso doble and like incorporating it with the rumba. And Rico is now teaching them along with the grandmother, and she's sewing the costume for Fran, as well as like adapting a costume that Rico had for Scott. And Fran has said to Scott, you're not going to win. And he says, I don't care. I don't care about the Pan Pacific Grand Prix. And he says the same to his mother, like, I don't care. And so at some point, Shirley, his mother, Doug, Les, the owner of the studio, and then Barry Fife, the guy with the rodent on his head, who's the president of the Federation, get together and says, we've tried everything we can to convince him. And he says, yes, except for tell him the truth. So it's the next day, which is the day before the Pan Pacific Grand Prix. Scott is at Fran's house. They've practiced, and then they're walking for a little bit. And he says, you remember what I said about the rumba, about how it's just to pretend to be in love? And she said, yes. And he said, I think I made a mistake. And he kisses her, which is adorable. And then he goes, oh no, I promised Wayne I'd help him with something. And it's a running joke that Wayne needs help with the bago pago or some sort of step. And she's like, well, you better not keep him waiting. And so he rushes back to the studio, and Barry Fife is there and tells him the real story of what happened between his parents and Les, which is that Doug and Shirley Hastings were on top of the world. They could have been the champions. Everyone admired Doug. He was the best dancer you've ever seen. But then he became a selfish dancer and was doing his own steps. And he did them during the Pan Pacific Grand Prix. And he lost and ruined his mother's career, ruined Shirley's career. He became a broken man, and only the birth of Scott gave him something to live for. And so don't take this away from him. Don't be selfish.
Holy moly.
So, super guilt trip. So Scott then breaks into the locked cabinet that his dad keeps and finds a picture of his parents. So there's in 1967. So there's some proof that, yes, his parents did dance. So the next day he's dancing with Liz because Ken has dropped her and is now dancing with Tina Sparkle. Scott feels terrible about having dropped Fran. Fran is there with the beginners, again, dancing with another girl. And Liz is saying something nasty about how, like, oh, she's back with the beginners where she belongs. And Scott is like running after her, trying to like see her to tell her, I'm so sorry. Like, this isn't what I wanted. Please understand why I'm doing this. It's for my dad. And meanwhile, his dad keeps running after him, going like, Scott, can I bend your ear for a tick? So finally, she tells him off. She's like, what about a life lived in fear is a life half lived? This is all like in the last minutes before the Pan Pacific Grand Prix Latin dance is about to happen. Scott's dad tells him actually what happened was he didn't ever dance the Grand Prix. Les danced with Shirley because they didn't want him to dance his own steps.
So Doug never actually danced his own steps in the Grand Prix. Les and Shirley made sure that he couldn't.
Meanwhile, Wayne, because he's worried about his bago pago steps, Fife has told him like, oh yeah, here's what you need to do. So he's following Fife to be like, hey, can you make sure I know what I'm doing for this? He's following Fife and finds him in the basement telling Ken, who is drunk off his ass, and Tina Sparkle, hey, as long as you go through the motions, you will get the trophy. So he's rigged it. So they go tell Les what they found. Les confronts Fife. Fife says like, oh, so you're betraying that family again or something like that. And he's like, I didn't betray Doug. You told me Doug wanted me to dance with Shirley. So all of this was...
So it was all engineered by Fife.
So while Doug is telling Scott all of this, one of the things he says is, we lived our life in fear, which of course, triggers Scott to be like, half-lived.
Yep.
So he leaves the ballroom, runs after Fran, gets her, and they dance. And so Fife ends up like turning off the music to stop them from dancing. And so Doug starts clapping so that they have the rhythm so they can still dance. And then the entire audience starts clapping. And so people are able to turn the music back on. And then the entire room comes in and starts dancing.
Like all the other competitors,
the
or
audience,
the audience too?
Everyone starts dancing.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
So
who wins?
We don't know. We all do. The audience wins. We all win.
Okay, cool.
The winning
fun.
is the friends we made along the way.
Right. All right. Well, that was fun. So where do you want to start with this?
Well, let's start with gatekeeping, because that's what this is all about. From 1967, when the original betrayal occurred with Doug Hastings, to 1992 with, young Scott Hastings, it was all about Barry Fife gatekeeping, saying like, this is strictly ballroom. We cannot.
This is the way
I think dancing is supposed to be. And I would rather have someone who is so drunk he can barely see straight be the Pan Pacific Grand Prix champion than have different types of steps, which doesn't really make sense. Like, why are we doing this then? Like, this is supposed to be about creative expression.
Excellence in dance. Yeah.
Yeah. It's supposed to be about excellence in dance and creative expression. And like, it's all made up anyway.
Are these guys amateurs?
Well, that's the other thing. It's like, it's amateur, but like, what does amateur, like, that's part of it too. I do not know. I know jack shit about ballroom dancing. This entire sum of my knowledge of ballroom dancing comes from this movie.
Right.
I've caught 1 or 2 episodes of Dancing with Stars. So yeah, I don't really.
Okay.
And that's like one of the things that Shirley says when she's fighting with Doug is like, if we'd let you dance your steps, we wouldn't have been able to teach even. And I don't know, maybe that's true. I mean, there are scandals within creative endeavors that would be enough to scare people away.
Yeah, maybe. But I think it's interesting when you set the topic here as gatekeeping, because there's the gatekeeper in Barry, but then there's also the sort of followers who just accept the gatekeeping and then enforce it themselves, like Shirley. And so I think there's something really interesting to be extrapolated about the way that gatekeeping works, because I think I tend to kind of just focus on the one gatekeeper and forget about all of their enforcers who don't even necessarily, they don't have the same sort of motives. They're just like rule followers. Like we tend to follow rules. We tend to follow people who we see in positions of authority. Like it's like that famous experiment where everyday people like tortured people to death because somebody was wearing a white coat, or they thought they did. Yeah. They thought they did. They didn't actually, because somebody was wearing a white coat told them to.
Yeah. There's that internalized sense of like, this is right and this is wrong. And like, what's interesting is because if you asked, I mean, all of this is ridiculous, obviously. But if you asked Shirley Hastings, like, what's the most important thing in the world to you? My family. But is she acting like that? Because she's acting like what's the most important thing in the world to her is a trophy that is, like really not that expensive. It's like something you get down at the trophy store that's down in the strip mall, that literally no one else cares about. And that is true of so much. Like we so often internalize these external rules because of people in higher power are gatekeeping.
It's interesting too, even just thinking about the gatekeeping, like what's at stake. Like when you say it that way, when you talk about sort of internalized, like good and bad or whatever, like for whatever reason, to Barry Fife and to many gatekeepers like him, like change feels like dangerous. And so it's sort of interesting to think about like the psychology of it that makes people dig in so hard that they're trying to protect something.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think it's just ego. Like there's a safety and a danger component, which is, as you point out, completely ridiculous. I mean, as this movie points out, by making the central action be this dance competition, which there'll be another one next year, presumably.
Yeah.
So, you know, that really kind of underscores the sense of safety and danger. Safety in the way it's always been done, and danger and change is completely misplaced. But I think we see that in all kinds of places where it's harder to see.
Well, and that kind of gets into one of the things that I find really fascinating about this is in the first 10 minutes you're watching this, and like kind of documentary style, it's interviewing Shirley and Doug, and Shirley saying like, Scott won most of the trophies in this room. I mean, that's what's so tragic about it is, you know, it was his year to go all the way. And he was going to win the Pan-Pacific Grand Prix of South Arab, blah, 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 blah. And like, you're sitting there going, that doesn't matter to anyone at all.
Well, also like, it'll happen again next year. Like, it's not like a once a decade competition.
She says that and you laugh because it's literally ridiculous. But if you zoom out, anything that we put on, like we say, like, oh, it is so important that I get this, that I get the corner office, that I win that departmental award, is equally ridiculous.
Well, because ultimately what that is outsourcing happiness, right? I'll be happy when that trophy sits on my shelf. And then the problem is you get the trophy and you're still miserable. and then what do you do?
So this gets to, I was just reminded of this recently. When I was in college, each department, they had an honors day. And this, I don't know if this is common in smaller schools. I don't know if they did this at Oberlin. But each department would give out honors to various students.
Oh, no, I don't think we did that.
I received an honor from the French department because I double majored in English and French, once when I was a sophomore and once again when I was a senior. And that was amazing. It felt amazing. I really wanted the English department to recognize me. Like, I wanted that so bad. I wanted that recognition. So my roommate's boyfriend was also an English major, and he was a moody, taciturn, kind of a pain in the ass. Like, guy did not talk.
Emo. He was emo. Before it was cool.
So there was a day where the three of us were walking across campus and we ran into an English professor. Now, he and I were both English majors. I never took a class with him, just never happened to take a class with him. All of a sudden, we run into this English professor and he was Mr. Schmooze, the boyfriend. He was all like, the moody taciturn does not talk, was suddenly like Mr. Charm. And I was sitting there with my mouth like on my, like my chin was on my chest, like, who are you? And guess who's getting awards and honors at Honors Day from the English department? And I realized Mr. Moody / Mr. Schmooze, you know, is like Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde. He knew exactly who the glad-handing professors were, and he went for them. Whereas, like, my favorite professors had nothing to do with that shit because they didn't care. And he specifically schmoozed with them. That, to me, is like what this, it's a microcosm of that. And so, like, since then, and it's not to say, like, I still, being recognized still feels really good. I received an award from, there's something called the Plutus Foundation about excellence in financial media, and I received a award for Freelancer of the Year, and I'm a little twee about it. I also know for a fact that I got it because Joe, who came on a few episodes ago, put in a word for me because I told him the story about this guy. I know that's exactly what happened. I know that is what happened because I told him, I was like, yeah, I don't put any stock in this shit anymore because of this experience. Like, because I don't do that shit. And I know he was on the panel for it was deciding, and he's like, Emily should get it this year.
Thanks,
you,
Joe.
And I'm a little twee about it because I was just like, that's my Plutus Award. I keep pens in it. So anyway, What I'm saying is anything we do, like the Oscars are ridiculous. The Olympics are ridiculous. They are. That's not to say that they're not worthwhile.
Right.
But they are ridiculous.
Right. I think that's an important distinction. I mean, I've been thinking a lot lately about like, this is such a weird thing. What a tangent. Sorry, folks. What is the evolutionary benefit of being able to appreciate beauty? Like, what did his like ancient humans, like, how did it make them survive and thrive better? I don't know. Like, I can see where pattern recognition or even like having like a dopamine hit or like being like getting aesthetic satisfaction from different things could like help you survive, but like actually appreciating beauty, I don't know. I'm not sure how it helps the species survive. It's still really worthwhile, right? I guess that's why I'm going here. Is like, just because the Olympics are ridiculous and like in many ways meaningless does not mean that they have no meaning. I know I just contradicted myself, but
well, and but
I stand by it.
And that's, I feel like ultimately that's what this story is about, because the Pan Pacific Grand Prix Latin dance is meaningless. It's ridiculous. Right. But the meaning is the dance. Dance is not meaningless. And that's what the
whole arc.
And that's what Doug is saying to Scott is like, it's about the dance. And when you're focusing on winning this trophy, you've lost it all.
Yeah. Does Doug say that? You've lost it all? Oh, okay.
That's me.
You. That's cool. That's Emily.
And that's what brings these two people together too, is that she sees that he wants, because Scott says, I'm bored with Strictly Ballroom. I'm bored with the normal steps. And she sees that he is trying for something that he's not getting from what he's known all along. And she sees him. He does not see her initially until she, like, because there's a point where they're doing something and he's trying to figure it out. And she's like, no, I've got something. This is what I've been working on at home. And he's like, no, shh. And she finally just does it. And he's like, whoa, what was that? And that's when he first really sees her. And so that's also, I think, really lovely, because where his parents don't see each other is because his mother was so focused on winning rather than on dance. And at the end, when everyone comes onto the dance floor, the first to join on the dance floor is Doug goes to Shirley and says, will you have this dance with me? And she says yes. And there's this sense of like, there is still something there between them. There's still dance between them, even though they have not danced together in 25 years. And that's it's lovely. It's just it feels good for this ridiculous movie.
Well, I mean, it sounds to me like it's sort of a meditation about the power of joy and creativity to bring us together.
Exactly. And then like the a life lived in fear is a life half lived. I love that in terms of like looking at it in terms of creativity, because if you're looking at it in terms of like fear, when you're talking about this like Grand Prix, Pan Pacific Grand Prix, oh my goodness, it's so silly. But if you're looking at it in terms of like, because I do carry such anxiety about creativity, but say, no, like the wholehearted, don't live in fear of your creativity, jump right in. That is amazing. And like that it's coming from a director. And Baz Luhrmann also wrote this with the co-author. It started as a stage play. So it started as a stage play in 1984 and went through a couple iterations. Luhrmann had the original idea and had like some help with writers and things like that. And then also Mercurio, and I'm not going to remember her name, but all of these are dancers. Like Mercurio was
the actors are dancers.
Paul Mercurio was part of the Australian ballet as of age 19. Just really, truly talented people. And so that's also one of the things that's really remarkable about this, is that you've got this dichotomy between this like tempest in a teapot and like remarkable dancing.
Yeah. So talk to me about white people ruin everything. I think that like by having Fran and her family actually speak Spanish to one another, that helps to underscore Scott's whiteness, I guess.
So, and this is one of those things where like I saw it this time. I definitely didn't notice it when I saw it as a teenager. And then because it's set in Australia, I feel a little less qualified to discuss this because I don't really have a sense of where the history of Latinx people in Australia. But the white people ruin everything. It's the paso doble.
Right, which is not, which when he does it the way you're supposed to do it on the competition floor, this Latin dance, these Latin people say that ain't it.
Yeah. So, and it was like, not even like cultural appropriation. It was like just culturally wrong.
Yeah.
And that got me thinking about also the costumes that everyone is wearing. What Scott and Fran are wearing for the Latin dance is very traditional Latin costumes. She's wearing one of those skirts that is like it's longer in the back than in the front, so you can see her legs. And he's got one of those short jackets and then like very tall, like high pants. It's the short jacket with all the sequins, and it's very traditional. And when I say, like, it's interesting to say white people because I think that's very Spanish, which Spain is white people.
I mean, that's the thing about whiteness, right? Is that it erases difference because it once upon a time, Spanish and Italian and Irish and Polish were all distinct, but now they're all white. So it just erases difference.
It's also like, I'm not sure how this plays out in Australia, New Zealand,
in Australian culture.
But when you look at the like Latin costumes of everyone else on the dance floor, they're like
caricatures.
They're peacocks. They're wearing like sequined tuxedos and like, I can't think of what they would be called, but like puffy sleeves and then like basically bikinis with like not quite like feathers attached as skirts. And on the one hand, it's like, okay, you don't want to do cultural appropriation where you're wearing a costume that's not yours. But on the other hand, like, that ain't it. So, but that is traditional for ballroom dancing. And so, like, it's complicated. It's complicated. But it had me feeling like, white people ruin everything. And like for people who are really into ballroom, like I forgive me, I don't know ballroom. I don't know the evolution of how those costumes came to be. There might be an amazing history that I know nothing about. And so I'm coming in, but I think there is something really interesting here in the fact that there's this like strictly ballroom rule that has taken something. It's like, this is Latin dance, and we got all of these people who are all of them are blonde and like bleached blonde. So like Ken is like bleached blonde and Liz is bleached blonde. Wayne and his partner are both redhead. Shirley is bleached blonde. But like all of the dancers are like performing whiteness. And even like Barry Fife, his toupee is blonde, and his girlfriend, wife, whatever she is, she is bleached blonde. So they are all very much performing whiteness, as is Les. He's bleached blonde. But this is the Latin dance. And so it's weird. It's this very weird thing. It's complicated.
Does it pass Bechdel?
It does, actually. It does very well. We have many female characters with names. And they talk to each other. They talk to each other in mean girl ways.
No, great.
So Shirley tells
Bechdel is a very low bar.
Shirley tells Fran like she should go home because everything would be better if she weren't there. Fran's grandmother also tells Fran that her mother would be proud of her if she were here. So that's lovely too.
Does grandma have a name?
Does, but I don't remember what it is. But yes, there's a name. And then Scott has a little sister who has a name that I don't remember, but she talks to Liz, she talks to Shirley, she talks to Fran. There's lots of conversation. Oh, and she talks to Barry's girlfriend / wife, whatever her name. Barry's girlfriend / wife is named Charm Leachman. She tells her, "You should be ashamed of yourself, Miss Leachman." So, yeah. But the gender stuff, it is like as Liz says, where the man goes, the lady must follow, because it is very much Scott's decision on everything. Some of that has to do with the fact that he's the competitor whose name is, like, she does not have whatever the background is necessary to put in as a competitor, and she doesn't have.
Oh, she's just his partner for the.
Yeah.
I see.
It's for the tournament. But there's also, and like, she definitely has agency. Like, she's the one who like comes to him and says, like, I think you could do this and I want to do this with you. She calls him a gutless wonder multiple times.
Fran does. Sorry, I thought we were talking about Liz.
No.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. I see.
So I think, for 1992, I think it's pretty good.
Yeah, it sounds like it. And even like the gender stuff, thinking about like the man leads and whatever, the dynamic between Shirley and Doug, that wasn't the case. I mean, there was another man interfering, but it's at least, before the sort of reconciliation because of the joy of dance at the end, it sounds like Shirley very much wore the pants in the family, to use a outdated expression. And
even with Fran's father being like overprotective, it seemed to be more that he didn't know where she was and he wanted to know. Not so much that, like, as soon as he was like, okay, who is this kid? What have you been doing?
Yeah, he wasn't policing. Yeah. He wasn't policing her sexuality. It didn't sound like.
Yeah, and as soon as like they found out, like, oh, you're dancing, show me. All right, we're going to teach you how to dance. And they're like, they're sewing costumes for him, and like we see there's some really hot scenes because Fran's father is very good looking. There's some really, really good scenes of Rico and Scott dancing together where he's teaching him.
I was going to say, I wonder what this movie would be like if we remade it today, when I know the rules of ballroom dancing have changed and now you can have same-sex couples on the dance floor, which I only know because of my, Instagram reels with these super hot dances with two men that I enjoy. But I wonder, like, if we were to like write a sequel that's set today, where it doesn't have to be a hetero like couple, like, what changes would that make? It doesn't really matter. It just is like that's where my brain went when we were talking about this.
Yeah.
So, all right. Well, any final thoughts from you before I try and reflect back to you what I heard about Strictly Ballroom?
Honestly, this is a delightful film. With one exception, it holds up. And the one exception is Fife calls Les the homophobic F word, but he's a horrible human being. And that is like the only thing that doesn't hold up. And even then, that's like, he's a horrible human being. And so I was really pleasantly surprised how well this movie holds up, how delightful it is from beginning to end. It's got a great soundtrack. It is full of eye candy. And it's genuinely funny, and it's feel good. Like you really feel good even as you're like, come on, people. But at the same time, you're just like, no, this is really important. Like, the Pan Pacific Grand Prix Latin finals trophy matters not at all. But what Scott and Fran are doing is really important.
Yeah. So I'm thinking about Christopher Guest movies when you say that. The thing, like the not important, like it makes me think Best in Show. Maybe we'll put that on the list. Anyway, let me see if I can reflect back to you what you brought about this delightful movie from 1992, directed by Baz Luhrmann and apparently written by him as well with some help. I think we spent a lot of time actually thinking about gatekeeping, and not just sort of the like that it happens and what the effects are of gatekeeping, but also the ways in which sort of gatekeepers have enforcers who have internalized the ideas of right and wrong or good and bad or whatever, safety and danger that the gatekeepers have sold them. So that was sort of an interesting meditation that kind of goes through the movie because of this character whose name is not Barney Fife. It's in fact Barry Fife. And he has a very bad toupee and he's a horrible human being and he uses the F word, the homophobic F word, not fuck. Okay. We also talked a lot about, connected to gatekeeping is the very low stakes of like everything, right? Like specifically we're talking about the Pan-Pacific Grand Prix Latin Dance Championship in this film, but I think you extrapolated, you used the phrase zoom out and sort of talk about like almost everything that we do is just sort of ridiculous like this. Like the stakes are not what we make them. Like we make the stakes high when in fact they don't matter much of the time. I think like oncologists might disagree with us, but
well, I mean, that's
heart surgeons.
I mean, that's why like competitions don't matter.
Right. Competitions. Yeah. Specifically. Yeah. I think that's right. So I think that was a key learning for you. There was something really interesting in A Life Lived in Fear is a Life Half Lived. And I think that's sort of like just general advice for humans, but you actually like did a little like even further interpretation of that because of the way it shows up in this movie to talk specifically about creative pursuits and the idea that sort of shrinking one's creative outlets or creative endeavors for fear of being judged, failing, whatever it is that we fear when we don't put our work out into the world, that's actually sort of an important lesson about like living our full creative selves, not just about taking risks and like asking someone out on a date or like applying for the job that you're not qualified for, but actually like living as creative beings. And I think that's important, that distinction. I appreciated your bringing that and that it came from this movie, especially since sort of the climax, the reconciliation between the estranged parents, or they weren't quite estranged, but they weren't quite together either. And sort of realizing that the gatekeeper is a gatekeeper and a horrible human being. What that unlocked was joy in creativity, joy in dance in this case, that is actually what brings all of these people together. That's why they do this competition, because they all love dance. And so by unmasking the gatekeeper in this case, we actually were able to see the whole universe of the movie return to the joy of dance. And that's really beautiful. And then lastly, I heard some gender stuff that was kind of minor. It passes Bechdel. And there is some stuff about like who leads because of the dance and like Fran sort of following, which is also partially about the story, but partially about gender. So there's a little bit of messiness there. Oh, and white people ruin everything, which is true, but also like complicated in this movie because we don't fully understand the milieu of Australian culture and also like it's Latin dance, but it's also ballroom culture and like it's complicated, but there does seem to be something in there, especially in the fact that Fran and her family speak Spanish to one another. So they're not like the movie makers made sure we understood that they were different from the English only speaking Australians. And lastly, my sister is a Plutus award-winning finance writer, you people. Like, I want you to like note that. So, did I forget anything?
I don't think so.
Well, next time I'm excited to bring you my deep thoughts about the cartoon movie Land Before Time by Don Bluth with the dinosaurs.
That's awesome. See you then.
This show is a labor of love, but that doesn't make it free to produce. If you enjoy it even half as much as we do, please consider helping to keep us overthinking. You can support us at our Patreon. There's a link in the show notes. Or leave a positive review so others can find us. And of course, share the show with your people. Thanks for listening. Our theme music is Professor Umlaut by Kevin MacLeod from incompetech.com. Find full music credits in the show notes.
Thank you to Resonate Recordings for editing today's episode.
Until next time, remember, pop culture is still culture. And shouldn't you know what's in your head?